Brother James, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
You were 17 years old when you embraced Islam.
Yes, yeah.
That was in 1998.
1998, yeah.
What was the story? How did you find Islam?
Well, it was more Islam found me than anything else, because in my village, there's very, very few people from outside of the village. So
Where's your village? Around here?
It's a place called Llantrisant.
How far from Cardiff?
It's about 10 miles from Cardiff. It's where the Royal Mint is. So everyone's coins are made there across the world. We make the money and send it out.
Oh.
So it's not a well-known town, but or village, but it's my village.
So you didn't meet many Muslims by then?
No, there was no real Muslims in my village. In Cardiff, you've got like the Yemeni and the Somali community who've been here for hundreds of years with the merchant fleet. So they'd come in and out the docks. But unless you went into Cardiff, you would not meet Muslims. It's just nobody about. It was just really, really strange. But you just, people would mix, but they wouldn't. There just weren't enough people.
They won't open up to others.
No, the Muslim communities in Cardiff were working communities, so they would be working on the ships. So there would be no real reason for those communities to go elsewhere, further towards my area. So we were more or less left alone to our own devices.
So what introduced you to Islam?
Well, a friend of mine, I met him when I was very, very young. His father was Muslim, but he wasn't brought up Muslim because he was mainly brought up by his mother, who wasn't Muslim. But he did have some kind of echoes of Islam. So, for example, we'd go out together to an event or something like that, where we'd have breakfast. I would always, think this is very strange, because I'd be there getting the scrambled egg, full English breakfast, which has famously got a lot of pork in it. So I'd be getting that, and he'd be getting like scrambled eggs and beans and toast, and I'd be like, well, why didn't get all the rest of it? It's like kind of missing out here. I'm not sure why he wasn't doing that. So basically, I just left that for a little while.
So although he wasn't brought up as a Muslim, but this was still part of his culture.
Yeah, so he was still kind of culturally there. And then when we got a bit older, he was all right. Okay, what is what is this thing that my father does? And his father was going to Juma. Being a Muslim, which is kind
Where
of...
Where was his father from?
A place called Mauritius, which is...
Mauritius, yes, I know Mauritius.
Out in the sea in Africa, off the coast of Africa. But it was quite interesting because, he'd disappear off to Juma and he'd be learning from his father a bit more. I was more interested in different types of philosophy, different religions and different things that were going on. And, so that was just something that was happening. And I was like, at one point, I was like, well, what is this that you're doing? What is this religion that you're looking at? And he started a conversation with me, and we started kind of to discuss things and kind of really kind of puzzle it out. In my community, a lot of people had gone over to being more agnostic or atheist. There was some Christianity about, but people had gone a lot more towards the agnostic way. But I'd always believed in God. So he started telling me more, and I started to listen. It made a lot of sense, because there's a lot of things within Christianity, for example, that you want it. They're going, okay, there's this, there's God, but there's statues, and I remember back from my youth, I used to go to Sunday school, and they teach you about all these different things, and then they teach you like, oh well, idols are bad. You get rid of idols. You shouldn't have idols. And then it's like, well, there's a great big statue of Mary there. What's that if it's not an idol? So it's very confusing. So I'd go off on holidays and I'd see more idols, and I'd be like, well, that's a little bit contradictory. And then we're talking about Islam, and it's like, well, same ideas. It's like, God is one, right? Okay. Mary, al-Islam, she is, part of Islam. Okay. So I'm looking through all these different individual things, and all these individual ideas.
And you could see the similarities.
Not just the similarities, but the purity of the idea. So you can see, the idea, where it's come from. So, okay, yeah, it's in Christianity. And then you see it in Islam, and it's like, well, wow, okay, that idea has actually been properly expressed and is followed. So it's like, you don't have idols. There's no, this is a mosque. There's no idols here. There's no statue of Mary. There's none of that. And I know there's churches out there who also follow the kind of no idols idea, but there's no crosses. There's nothing like. There's no kind of seeking to make it up as you go along. That is present in Islam. So we know from not just the Quran but the Sunnah as well, everything that we need to do and why we do it. And listening to that, granted I was quite young at the time as well.
You were at school, maybe?
Yeah, I was at school. I was still in school. I'd gone on to like kind of this. We got a slightly in between part that you can go to between school and college or university.
You finished school at 16 nearly.
Yeah. So I was in that in between part, but I was reading a lot and going through it all, and a lot of it made sense. And previously, Islam had been I discounted Islam. It was something very strange, very different, and not something that I would just look at all. Because back then, you had like Buddhism. Like, oh wow, okay, if you want to be a bit hippy dippy, you can look at Buddhism, or if you want to be very atheistic, you can look at like kind of the more Japanese religions and Shinto and all of that. And I was like, right, okay, you can look at all of these things. And obviously you can look at Christianity as well. So I was looking at all of these things, and Islam was just coming through as a very clear and message.
Stood out.
Yeah, and it was quite funny because my friend, he didn't know much either. So, because obviously he was finding his way into Islam. So it was something we shared together as we were kind of...
And he became more committed?
Yeah, because...
you made the journey together?
Yeah, as he discovered why his father, was against him eating pork, and why he'd taken that on, and the meaning behind it, and, what being a Muslim was about. I found that out because obviously I used to talk to him a lot. I still do. And basically we came to this mosque, which is, a little journey out. And we joined an English circle here, and just learnt more and more.
It was running in 1998?
Yeah. It wasn't as nice as it is now. But alhamdulillah, it had enough.
The beginning.
It had the Muslims, and that was enough.
You were so young. I mean, were you living with your parents?
Yes. Yeah.
What was their impact? What was the impact on them?
Well, it was a bit difficult because with my father, religion was a closed book. It wasn't discussed because he'd had some issues with the church, the Catholic Church.
So he was anti-religion.
it was by closed book. It was not something that he would discuss. So as a result, I would never discuss it with him. But my mother, on the other hand, she believed in God, but she didn't go to church. But she had a bit of a mix going on because that side of my family was Protestant, which back then it was quite, and in my area, there's quite a few different denominations of Christianity. We've also got a very strange connection to paganism in the UK. The new resurgent paganism, because we had quite a famous doctor, Dr. William Price, who restarted cremation. Very strange man, but it was a part, I believe it's a symptom of people losing their way, because Christianity doesn't make a lot of sense. Of the reasons I was saying earlier, with Islam, you've got this kind of true thread of, the truth. You've got Sunnah, which is telling you exactly why you're doing what you're doing. And unfortunately, the Christians have lost all of that. So you can hear the echo of the message that Isa would have come with. And you can hear the echo of it in Christianity, but it's just an echo, and it's very faint. So they don't know why they're doing what they're doing. But yeah, so...
your father, for him, you couldn't discuss it with him.
No.
But he didn't object to your embracing Islam?
When it came to embracing Islam, it was a bit difficult because I'd been doing all of this kind of research and looking more or less without their knowledge. So, for example, I had a lot of books. I do enjoy reading, so I got Plato, I've got kind of Socrates, I've got kind of all these different books by different thinkers. So to have books on Islam wasn't really anything unusual. So my father had served out in the Middle East, so basically he'd been in Bahrain, so he knew of Muslims, but they did. It wasn't something where they would mix generally. So the people who had were in the military didn't mix.
He spent some time in Bahrain?
Yes, yeah. So
when was that? In the 80s?
It would have been in the 70s.
70s.
So, quite a long time ago.
Because I was in Bahrain in the 80s.
Well, he missed you. He was back home by then.
So it didn't surprise him that you were bringing books about Islam, but
no.
But it surprised him that you embraced Islam.
We never discussed it.
Oh, really?
We never discussed it. It was because there was such a divide over religion. Previously, prior to that, there was no real avenue to take to discuss it. But he never said anything against me coming to Islam. So although it was a topic where we couldn't really talk, he didn't oppose it, and he didn't say anything against it.
Well, that's helpful, isn't it?
My mother, on the other hand, she was quite upset because she was like, well, how could you, because she didn't know a lot about Islam, and she was like, well, how could you leave Jesus? It's, and when you don't know anything about a religion or where it comes from, and you've only got the perspective that people have here, it's not seen. There's no knowledge, so it was difficult because I'd have to try and explain from a position of very little knowledge. So obviously now I've got a lot more knowledge than I had starting out.
True.
But in the beginning, to defend your position of why have you accepted Islam over Christianity or atheism or being agnostic, which was kind of where we were coming from, it was difficult because I had my reasons why I came to Islam. But when people come to you and then say, well, what about Jesus? It's like, well, I didn't actually convert to Islam to get away from Jesus.
He's already there.
He's already there, yeah. But it's difficult to kind of express when, for example, I came to Islam because of the oneness of God. So I did have some, ability to discuss it at least. But when your reason isn't clear, or why other people would embrace it, people are like, well, I don't understand, why do you believe Islam over nothing? Just have nothing instead. And it's like, well, we've all come from life, we've all come from something, and now Islam is here. It's a good message, it's a perfect message. Just look into it, and people don't want to do that.
It's a question of pursuing the truth.
Yes.
You look for the truth, don't you?
Yeah, well, I was looking. Alhamdulillah, it was, for me, the logical choice. And, just so happened that my best friend was also on the same kind of journey. So we learned different things. We could bounce them off each other, because there hasn't always been a huge amount of information, because living where I live, obviously it's just me and my friend, and it's like there's no other Muslims, and it's like, right, okay, so how do you pray? Oh, right, okay, I don't know, and if you do know where to come, unfortunately we had here to come to, but to seek knowledge was difficult.
Yeah.
And the thing is, and now knowing more, we were very fortunate that we had here to come to.
Are you still friends?
Yes, we're still friends. Yeah, he's still quite local as well, which is great. But getting the knowledge, though, we were very fortunate. The fact that there was people who were here who could show us, a normal version of Islam. And we didn't just, walk into some kind of, a strange group. So we were very fortunate, alhamdulillah.
And I think at that time, we're talking about the late 90s, things were getting much better for Islam in this country compared to people, for instance, who reverted in the 70s or in the 80s.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is the thing. When at that time, it was a very easy time. Relatively, especially considering how things have gone. But it was a great time. There wasn't, but there's a lot more people who've come to Islam since, especially here. There's a lot more support for people, which is great, and there's a lot more resources available. So that people can learn how to do the basics and the basics of Islam as well, which is not always easy to find.
So I can tell from your story that the Muslim community was all embracing.
Yes, yeah, very embracing.
So at least from that point of view, it was facilitating.
It was a very different culture, where my family is very old school for the UK. So shaking hands was acceptable. You can shake hands, but hugging was out. That's not going to happen. And then obviously, when I took my Shahada, I took my Shahada.
Everybody wanted to hug you.
Everyone wanted to give me a hug. So I introduced that into my family. And alhamdulillah, my father passed away since I came to Islam. But the one benefit that my family had from Islam, which was basically, I started it. I got everyone hugging. So everyone hugs now, as well as handshakes. So it's not
any Muslims in your family?
No, just me. So I'm unfortunately, alone for now. So inshallah, that'll
Inshallah,
change.
make dua.
Inshallah, yeah, make dua as much as possible.
Now, along this journey, what were the major challenges?
The major challenges are you can give the example of being a Muslim, trying to do the right thing, trying to tell people, this is the correct path. This is I'm doing this because in Islam we believe that you shouldn't do it. And then you've got to watch people who are good friends of yours, who you used to have a drink with, continue down a path that will lead to their destruction. And it does.
You feel sorry for them?
Yeah. But it's also, it breaks your heart because, over COVID, quite a lot of people died. But a lot of them died of non-COVID related reasons. And you're still trying to give them guidance. One of my friends died of alcoholism. And I was saying to my friends who were friends with him, don't take him to the places where alcohol is present. And they ignored me. And they was like, right, okay, so that's what you're going to do. And for me, as a Muslim, you make your agreement with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you're going to follow Islam, and you follow Islam, and it does take you away from these disasters, but it doesn't mean that you won't witness other people who have followed another path, suffering from those disasters, and it can be quite hard on you seeing that, and you wonder if you were better at more eloquent, a better speaker, that maybe you could have changed the qadr. And it's like, maybe if I'd said this, or I'd been a bit more able, and then you realize it's like, no, you can't have done that, because that was what was supposed to happen.
Well, you try your best.
Yeah, you do try, and it's been a big challenge going forward. It's funny though, because you see some people, some Muslims, for example, like, oh, don't you miss eating, drinking or eating
Muslims
pork?
ask you this?
Yeah. And they're like, oh, pork is a filthy animal. And I'm like, no, look, in Islam, it says, basically, it's forbidden. So there you are. That's it.
Yes.
If you start putting in reasons that are additional, there's no need. It's just do that. So you get like quite funny discussions, because obviously I've got a slightly different experience from people who've been Muslim all their lives, but it's like no, it's just this is the reason we're given. Just carry on with that. It's
I remember once one of the sisters told me that she misses a bacon sandwich.
Yeah.
But of course, she would never eat it, because it's haram. It's haram. Full stop.
Well, I won't go into it too much, but it's one of those things. Is like my father used to make me like a full English breakfast. When I was in school, so I'd have a full English breakfast every now and again. And that would have all sorts of stuff on there, and it would always baffle me whenever my friend Nadeem was joining us for breakfast or anything like that. He'd always baffle me.
He won't touch it.
It's like, yeah, you wouldn't have like half of like a full half of the food. It's like, what is going on there? So it's quite
it's discipline.
Strange. Yes, yeah, and it's you've got to have a good discipline as well to follow that. But I do remember when I first came to Islam, I went with a group, and it was on a military base, and I'd started not eating pork, obviously, for obvious reasons, and they weren't very happy with me being Muslim. So they were quite kind of standoff, really kind of you're something strange and weird. And I was like, oh, no, okay, fine. And they had a great big barbecue, lots of pork, but it was they left it out in the sun too long, I think, because everybody who'd eaten the meat got sick the next day with food poisoning.
Oh,
and I was just like, well, there you are.
that like
yeah. So it's like kind of I was kind of like, well, this is one of those things.
Compared to the late 90s, do you feel that people are more interested in Islam these days?
It's really strange because the late 90s, it was perceived. It's quite funny because a lot of the world is Muslim and it's ignored. And it's a constant portrayal of Muslims as being this kind of small group. It's just the Muslims, small group of Muslims. It's huge. There's such a variety. And what has changed is people have lied so much about the Muslims. It's quite funny because then they meet one and it doesn't fit. So you get, if you're a Muslim, he's a terrorist and they beat their wives and, they hate women and, they're this, they're that, they're always serious, they never smile. Whole complete nonsense. And then people haven't met Muslims. So then what happens then? There's like this kind of like, well, this isn't true. I can see this isn't true. So then you get questions like, well, so
you become more interested.
Yeah. So people ask these basic questions, and then that's it. And that's why we've got more and more. What I saw was, late 90s. Yeah, you had a few people. And bear in mind, this is Cardiff. There's been Yemenis, there's been Somalis here for years, or hundreds of years. Yeah, not just kind of. It wasn't like last week or last 50 years. And the big difference is now there's a lot more people who have come to Islam. They've spoken about Islam, and they found out it doesn't match. It doesn't match up to what they've been told, and then they come to Islam, and they're not coming to Islam for reasons other than Islam. So in the 90s, you probably had, Jemima Khan and all that, basically, I want to marry a cricketer, come to Islam. It's like, okay, fine. It's just so we can get married. Yeah, okay. And now, alhamdulillah, you're getting people coming to Islam because of Islam,
yes.
Which is really different. It's really, really, and for me, it's a nice experience because it's like kind of, oh wow, people are actually seeing Islam for what I see it for, rather than what you see on television, which, rather strangely, the more they push, the more they lie, the more people see that it doesn't fit, it doesn't work. When your neighbour's a Muslim and it doesn't match, you get curious, you ask questions, or some people do. Some people, obviously they kind of stick to the narrative that they're told to stick to by the news. But it's pleasant because you get so many more Muslims, but it's at the same time you kind of a little bit damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So, for example, if you got like a Muslim walking down the street, and they're wearing a thawb, they're dressed like a Saudi or a Pakistani or a Sudani. They're walking down the street. They're like, oh, they need to get them out. They're kind of coming over here, taking over our culture. And then if it's me, and then they find out, oh, well, actually, that guy's a Muslim. and they didn't know. It's like, oh, he's plotting against us. It's a conspiracy. These people, look at him. I didn't know he was Muslim. He's clean shaven. He's this, he's that. So I always tend to tell people I'm Muslim straight up. But it's quite funny, the people who get offended when they didn't know that I was Muslim, and then because it's like, well, would you have treated me differently if you had known? And you were upset now because I'm telling you that I'm a Muslim and you treated me well previously. So it's interesting, the problems you have and how you kind of how it's changed over time. To the way things are today.
Well, Brother James, it's been a great pleasure talking to you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.